So we're getting towards that point of the year where it becomes truth-telling season. We just got out of lion season, right? Where it's the draft and everyone's trying to hide their cards and a lot of smokes and mirrors and whatnot. And that's lying season. We talk about that all the time. Now it's truth season. It's truth-telling time. As we get closer to the season, you start to find out a lot about some of these teams, how coaches felt, how they feel, how players felt last year, how they feel now. And so we're going to get into a lot of that today. You know what else, though? It's starting to kind of creep into my brain. All these players coming back off of injury. I think it feels like comeback season. So we're going to get into that today in a major way. Players come back. Any NFL fan can see that the league was better off with you. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 170th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on the program today. We're going to talk about comebacks because I didn't realize until I sat down and I jotted a list of players that I felt like were impact players in this league that missed a bulk of the season, much of it last year, that will be in the discussion if they play, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe even a full 17 game slate. Who's to say this season they will be in the discussion? Last year, Alex Smith was the runaway slam dunk winner of the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Once he came back, and I believe it was week 6 against the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. Once he hit the lineup and got in and was entrenched as the starter and led Washington, even if Washington had only won, 2 games with Alex Smith, the fact that he was able to come back and do what he did on the field after seeing what we saw from him, whether it's Project 11 documentary or just seeing the horrific scene of him leaving the field, to have him back on the field in any capacity, you knew he was going to win Comeback Player of the Year. And Ben Roethlisberger had a hell of a season last year, even though it didn't end the way he wanted it to. He would have won Comeback Player of the Year if not for Alex Smith. So this year, there's a bunch of guys vying for the title of Comeback Player of the Year. You never really want to be in that discussion because it means you went somewhere. In order to come back, it means you went somewhere. And players don't want to go anywhere, but we'll have that discussion a little bit later on in the show. I'm going to tell you right now, truth hurts. Truth hurts. And, sometimes you don't want to hear it, but you have to hear it. So we're going to talk about some players and some situations that you might not have been aware of and you need to be aware of. Truth hurts. We'll do that later on in the show as well. But before we do any of that, we're going to get into the Gem Droppin Session. And it stems from something that I brought up on socials over the weekend. And I wanted to expound upon it here on the Louie T Network podcast. But let me first ask you guys, how was your weekend? How you feeling? I mean, that was really rude of me. I had a really relaxing weekend. Didn't do much of anything of note. Yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. It was quiet. It was reserved. We kicked it at the crib and we stayed in the entire weekend. I don't even know if I left the house this weekend. I'm trying to think. I might have ran to the store. No, I took my son to swim lessons on Sunday. That was his first time going swimming. Got to teach the young fella how to swim. And he had a blast. He had a blast in the water, and he's very comfortable in that setting, which is great to know. So outside of that, don't think I got out of the house at all. So didn't watch that much television either. Not too much TV programming. Although I did watch a wonderful episode of Unsung. I'm an R&B guy, as you'll find out later on this week if you didn't already know, and I've said this a million times, but I'm an R&B guy. I listen to rap. Don't get it twisted. I listen to hip hop love hip hop, but I'm an R&B guy through and through, and I watched a spectacular Unsung this weekend, and I love that show as well. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the proceedings if this evening, shall we? Or this afternoon. It's 3:00. Got here early, nice and early. Let's do it. Let me drop a gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man Louie T.E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, this weekend, I was sitting around on socials for a second. Try not to spend too much time on socials because it could drain your time very quickly. You go down a rabbit hole. I've done this a couple of times, caught myself in the middle of it and said, what are you doing, dude? You know, you get on Facebook and they ask you, hey, you know, are you friends with such and such? If you know this person, then you might know this person. And it's somebody you went to high school with. You're like, damn, I ain't seen that person in 20 years. So you click on their profile and you start looking at their pictures. And then they say, hey, or you see somebody on their page that you went to high school with that you haven't seen in 20 years. And you click on their page. And it's a nasty rabbit hole that you go down. And next thing you know, you look up and you've been on socials for 3 hours. I can't do that. That's not, to me, it's not a very efficient use of my time. So, you know, I might get caught on socials for about a good maybe 15, 20 minutes at a time. And that's enough for me. But I was on socials, scrolling my timeline on Twitter. And I ran into, you know, it might have been IG. I think I ran into a clip of Reginald Bush in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints early in his career. I want to say this might have even been his rookie season. But he breaks off this ridiculous run where he's going off tackle outside and he runs into a blocker who's blocking a defender. He jumps on the defender like slightly, shifts, stops, turns directions, cuts it back against the grain, and then proceeds to hit the afterburners and is in the end zone. It's a ridiculous run, but you know what's crazy is I don't think Reggie Bush ever actually became the player that I thought he was going to become. I don't think he was ever as dynamic, but he was still really good, you know, at his peak when he was healthy. But I don't know if he ever quite met the expectation level that was set for him coming out of SC. That said, it got me to thinking after watching that clip. Who is the greatest college football player you ever saw play? And I said, And it dawned on me. It was Reginald Bush for me. And I tweeted that out. I said, who is the greatest college football player you ever saw play? Now, I made sure I worded it with who you saw play. Because, you know, you'll have people tell you, well, you didn't see this guy. You know, you didn't see Herschel Walker or you didn't see Bo Jackson. Well, yeah, I didn't see him. That's why I said who you saw play. Those guys may have been better players than the guy that you saw and the guy that you referenced, but you didn't see that guy. So I'm asking you specifically off of your experience, who's the greatest college football player you've ever seen play? For me, it was Reginald Bush. And I've seen a lot of great college football players. You know, Michael Vick was outstanding. You know, Peter Warrick was outstanding. Percival Harvin was outstanding. Tim Tebow, outstanding. Adrian Peterson, outstanding. These are all dynamic college football players that I watched play. Charles Woodson, outstanding. That was a name that a lot of people brought up. Outstanding. You know, you don't get a lot of defensive players winning the Heisman. So that's how you know Charles Woodson was really special. You don't get that. I can't even remember the last defensive Heisman Trophy winner we've had. They're so rare. They're usually offensive players, running backs, quarterbacks. We just had a wide receiver win it. It's rare that it's a defender. So, you know, he was really special, and he was. And I think what a lot of people don't really take into consideration with Reginald Bush was not only was he a dynamic offensive player that could run it and catch it, he was also a tremendous special teams player as a returner. Like, I think a lot of people don't take that into consideration as well. This man had 4 returns in his career, 3 on of the punt variety and 1 of a kickoff. That 05 season, I don't know. And obviously, guys rush for 2,000 yards and all of this good jazz. I don't know if there's a more dynamic college football season from start to finish that I've ever seen than Reggie Bush's 2005 campaign. You know, I think he had 16, 17, 1,800 yards rushing, something up there. I know he was ridiculously high that year. I think he had another 3, 4, 5. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was 6, but somewhere in that neighborhood, anywhere from 300 to 600 yards receiving, somewhere in that neighborhood. He was over 2,000 yards total in terms of all-purpose yards for sure. And that's not even adding in the return yardage that he had. He might have been close to 3,000 if you total the, kickoff and punt return yardage that was probably in there as well. He was so dynamic. I remember the Notre Dame Fighting Irish game from that 05 season like it was yesterday. It was one of the best college football games of the year until the Rose Bowl with Texas and Vince Young and that dynamic national championship game, which was one for the ages, one of the greatest college football games ever played. And no, I haven't watched games from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, but I think if there were a list compiled, that would be on the short list of greatest college football games ever played. So many NFL guys from that one particular game, so many guys that went probably in the first round from that game. Just thinking about it, there were so many talented NFLers in that one ball game alone from both Texas and USC. But that Notre Dame game that I just referenced was the Reggie Bush push game, the Bush push game, where Matt Leinart is trying to quarterback sneak it in. They don't have any timeouts. They feverishly push it down the field. I thought we were going to win the game. We score a touchdown late. They got no timeouts. They get it all the way down to the goal line, and Matt Leinart is trying to get in on a quarterback sneak, and he's not getting in. The line is holding up, and then Reggie Bush comes from out of nowhere, it seemed like, even though he was standing there the whole time, and he takes Matt Leinart essentially and pushes him into the end zone and gives him the extra added boost that he needed to get in. And I was like, is that legal? Of course it's legal. I don't know if it was legal or not at the time, but I was like, what? That one stung. Still stings to this day. But if they don't win that game, then we don't get the national championship game that we ultimately got. So I don't want to be the one to stand in the way of history. So that was one hell of a football game, though, that 2005 Notre Dame USC clash. That had a bunch of future LFLers in it as well, including Brady Quinn, quarterbacking that Notre Dame team on the opposite side. But Bush, for me, was just so electric, and his combination of speed, agility, and the ability to just embarrass defenders out in space was something we hadn't seen probably in I don't want to speak in hyperbole, because Marshall Faulk was similar back, and he was in the NFL kind of doing the same thing at that particular time. But it was the closest thing I'd seen to Marshall Faulk. And I actually thought that he was faster than Marshall Faulk. That was the thing that did it for me, was like, this is Marshall Faulk, but with Eric Dickerson's speed. Because Reggie Bush had those long strides like Eric Dickerson, those long, grass eaters, if you will. And once he got out in space, forget about it. And it was his ability to break dudes down, but not break stride. It was just amazing. The spin moves. I mean, everything he did looked video game-ish. Even his leaps from like the 5-yard line, stretching the ball out, like everything looked like a video game with Reginald Bush. He was unstoppable. It was just every week it was a new highlight, play after play, especially in that '05 season. But there were other years, '03, '04, where he was dynamic too, and there were big plays made. But that '05 year in particular for me was the one that I said, oh my God, this guy is ridiculous. This guy's the best player I've ever seen in college football. And for some people, it'll be Tebow, and I got no knock on that. It'll be Percival Harvin. I got no problems, no qualms with that. It'll be Peter Warrick for some of you. He was so good. I don't think a lot of you know Peter Warrick. I don't think you know how good he was with Florida State back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Peter Warrick was the man for that FSU team in those days. There were some really good college football players over the years, but one of my favorites, and before there was Reggie Bush, my favorite college football player to watch was Tommy Frazier. And again, a lot of y'all have no idea who I'm talking about, but Nebraska quarterback, just so dynamic with the football in his hands. Left a lot to be desired throwing the football. But in those days, you didn't have to be a dynamic passer of the football in college. You could run it. And they had that triple option offense at Nebraska with Tom Osborne. And they were some kind of tough to stop, man. They were running up the score. And after he left, if you recall, Eric Crouch then took over at Nebraska. And they just kept the party going. And they kept running the football. And they kept hurting teams. You can't do that in college football anymore. But and no quarterback wants to sign up for that shit either. Nobody's looking to run the football, 35 times in a game. But in those days, you do whatever it took to win. And that doesn't translate well to the NFL unless you're looking to switch positions, which Eric Crouch didn't want to do, which is why he ultimately retired. But, man, Tommy Frazier was something else. Go watch some Tommy Frazier tape. He and his running mate back there, and Lawrence Phillips, even though he couldn't keep himself out of trouble, he might still be doing a bid in prison right now, may Lawrence Phillips. But man, those two in the backfield together, go look at some of that highlight tape if you want to see some real dynamic athletes in the backfield, quarterback, running back tandem. Go watch some of that, and I want to say 94, 95 Nebraska highlight film. Whew, that's some stuff right there. But I digress. Reginald Bush, for me, is the greatest college football player I've ever seen play. There's some other good players, but for me, that's the guy that did it for me. I don't know about you guys, but that was the one. And like I said, I put that out on socials over the weekend, got some responses, and heard from a lot of people. And I got a lot of Charles Woodson's too. I think that might have been the person that I got the most was Charles Woodson. So he was really good. He was special. And again, much like I just said with Reginald Bush, Woodson was also a dynamic return man as well. Not only because you can't just win a Heisman as a corner. Like, unless you go out and have 12 interceptions in one season. Like, after a while, teams are not going to throw your way. If you're that good of a corner, they're just going to avoid you like the plague. So by the time Charles Woodson was at that point of his collegiate career, teams weren't really throwing the football his way. So he wasn't going to get to make a ton of plays on that side of football. But where he really was able to make his mark, not only being a shutdown corner, was also he could make plays in the special teams game. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct, he was one of those two-way guys as well. You know, played a little bit of offense, dibbled and dabbled a little bit there too. So again, it's hard to just win it as a defender unless you're dominant, which, you know, goes to show you how good Charles Woodson really was, having won the Heisman Trophy. And again, I don't know. You know what? I want to look it up because I'm curious now. Who was the last defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy? Because it's just so rare to win it. Who was the last player? Defensive. I should put defensive in front of that. Defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson in 97. I told you, I can't think of many other guys. I think he's like one of 2 or 3 guys on the defensive side of the football to ever win the award. It's just rare. You don't see it very often. And like I said, if my memory serves me correct, definitely a kick and punt returner. And I think he even dabbled on the offensive side a little bit. And you've got to do a number of different things if you want to win it as a defender. Chase Young, I thought would have had a shot. It would have been an outside shot, and I still don't think he would have won. But he would have had an outside shot had he not been suspended the year that Joe Burrow went in. And nobody was going to beat Joe Burrow in 2020. That year, he was 2019, I should say. He was phenomenal. They went undefeated. It was one of the greatest individual. I shouldn't say individual. It was one of the greatest teams, college football wise, I've ever watched because of just how tough their schedule was and what they had to endure, and yet they destroyed the competition most weeks. So he wasn't going to beat out Joe Burrow, but he would have had a shot had he not been suspended, because he was on pace for about 20 sacks in that season before the suspension. So I digress. Anyway, that's going to do it for my gem dropping session. Don't want to keep rambling on. We're going to take a quick break, get a word from one of our sponsors, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll jump into Truth Hurts. You are dialed in to the 170th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I will see you on the other side. I want to take this time out to thank Manscaped for sponsoring the Louie T Network podcast. Manscaped has the right tools to get the job done quickly, safely, and hygienically. Father's Day is just around the corner, and you probably need a gift for your hairy dad. Make sure your dad is proud this year and get him and yourself the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and Ultra Smooth package. You know what they say, like father, like son. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 and Ultra Smooth package is perfect for you and the dad in your life to complete your grooming game. Let me give you a little bit more information on both of those outstanding products, starting first with the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is now available in both the US and in Canada. So what makes this waterproof trimmer different from all the other trimmers? This 7,000 RPM trimmer features skin-safe technology to keep your balls in check and has helped reduce manscaping accidents around the globe. A new multifunctional on and off switch can engage a travel lock created for jet setters. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Additional guard lengths with sizes 1 to 4 let you trim to your liking. Then you get to the Ultra Smooth package. Comes in 3 different steps to take care of your family jewels. Step number 1, the crop exfoliator. Infused with ingredients that can soothe, clear, and keep the skin on and around your groin feeling refreshed, reducing the risk of ingrown hairs. Buy your delicacies. Gotta keep those guys nice and safe. Step number 2 is the crop gel. See where you're shaving with Manscaped's unique clear shaving gel just for your groin. In step 3, now it's time to clear out the bushes. Time to shave. The crop shaver now comes into play, which was designed for shaving the groin area with confidence. 3 precision blades, including extra wide lubricating strips and a pivoting head for the ultimate groin grooming experience. All 3 of these are vegan, which you know I love because I am vegan. Cruelty-free and sulfate-free products are included, so you know your manhood is in good hands. Stop imagining your dad has it covered because he probably doesn't. More likely than not, he probably doesn't, okay? Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code LouieT. That's 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code LouieT at manscaped.com. This is the perfect package for you and your dad's perfect package. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code LouieT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the promo code Louie T. It's dad bod season. Time to get smooth. And trust me when I tell you this, your dad and your boss will thank you. Welcome back to the 170th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Thank you guys for joining me. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button for more great content here on the Louie T Network. Also, turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Greatly appreciate you. And thank you in advance. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure that you subscribe, if that is an option, to the Louie T Network podcast, and also rate and review. Looking for a favorable review and a 5-star rating. If you ain't got that for me, you know what? I'll just pass. But if you have that for me, I'd love to receive that, and I thank you for that in advance as well. So before we get to Truth Hurts, which we'll get to here in a second, I do have a super chat, and I was reading some of the comments. You guys are hilarious as we were playing the ad read, and I got a couple comments I want to knock out real quick. Henny Knight says, "Where's the card unboxing video, Lou?" Every Monday and Wednesday at 5 p. So 5 p.m. is when the video automatically uploads on every Monday and Friday. On Wednesdays, we're live 8:30 p.m. at night for a live mix and rip. So the video will be up in about an hour and a half from now. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you for asking. Let's see. I had Gunny Man. First of all, be more careful _95 said Lawrence Phillips passed. I did not know that until you just said that, and I had to look it up because I was like, really? Yeah, and he passed a while ago. I don't know how I missed that, but he passed in like 2016 in prison. So yikes. Did not know, did not see. Wow. Yeah. My condolences. Gunny Man, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Gunny Man, he writes, "Lou, what's good, buddy? I'm from Norfolk as well. You look like a Maury guy. Me, it's Rocket Ishmael." Wait a minute, time out. I feel disrespected that you said I look like a Maury guy, okay? Watch your tongue. Don't ever step out of line. Lake Taylor High School, greatest of all time, okay? I'm a Titan through and through, all day, every day. Don't you ever forget it. Look, I'm too rough and rugged to be a Maury Commodore, okay? How dare you, okay? I feel violated that you would think that I look like a Maury guy. If you're in front of me right now, I might have to slap you. Now I'm playing, man. No. Lake Taylor Titan, bro. All day, through and through. Best high school in Norfolk, not even close. So, Titans represent. Stand up. Mob Squad. Stand up. We in the building, as always. And I saw something else. A couple of names. Sean Taylor and Ed Reed for Mike Lowry. Those are some really good names there. Lamar Jackson was really good as well. That's another good name too, if we're talking of recent vintage. So with that said, let's get to our next segment in the Truth Hurts. So let's jump into Truth Hurts. Sean McVay, despite having gone to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff at quarterback, despised Jared Goff and what his offense had become. Truth hurts. If you're Jared Goff, you don't want to hear that shit. I read an article last week, and I meant to do this on the show Friday, but I told you Friday was unstructured. It was off the cuff. We pretty much was shooting the breeze. So I forgot to talk about this. But I read that players that have been on the Rams roster for multiple years and been coached by Sean McVay said he's a lot more relaxed and a lot more easygoing this offseason, and he's in a much better mood. To which Sean McVay replied, "You damn right." So I got to thinking, and I started putting pieces of the puzzle together. So I hear that, and then I go back into my brain catalog and I start going through the Rolodex, and I remember Chris Cooley saying that Sean McVay is a very impatient coach. He doesn't have patience, and he didn't have patience for Jared Goff. His patience ran thin a long time ago, and he was over Jared Goff a long time ago. And you know, Chris Cooley and Sean McVay are really good friends. So that got me to thinking, Jared Goff was kind of blindsided by the whole wanting to be traded, and he felt violated. And you heard how hurt he sounded when he first learned the news of being traded to Detroit, but he was also excited because of the new opportunity. And then I went back again and I said, well, damn, Goff told anybody that would listen, including Sean McVay, I can play in this playoff game. If you need me, coach, I'm here. And he was like, nah, we good. We going to roll with John Wofford. Wait a minute, who? The guy that just started like the last game of the season? That guy? Not the guy that started the previous, 15, 16 games. But the guy that just started last week. Wofford, that guy. Yeah, him. You sure you want to do that in a playoff game? I'm positive. He couldn't stand Jared Goff. Sean McVay was so over Jared Goff, it wasn't even funny. And at the first opportunity to get rid of him, he jumped at it. I mean, it's crazy. He was so good in 2018 was Jared Goff for Sean McVay. I'm just surprised at how quickly that thing went south. I mean, that relationship soured so quickly, it's not even funny. But that goes back to the initial point that I made, that Chris Cooley made, that Sean McVay doesn't have patience. And he especially doesn't have patience for subpar to mediocre play at the quarterback position, because that's the position he covets and values the most. And he's an offensive guy. And so, yeah, that deterioration of that relationship was fascinating to watch, and how quickly and rapidly it happened. But truth hurts. McVay is proving it right now with Matthew Stafford in L.A. He's in a much better mood, and he says, "You're damn right I am," because he's got his guy at quarterback. It's amazing. Robert Griffin III. I could go on and on about this guy. He's a character. Anyway, he auditioned for CBS and Fox to become an analyst over, I want to say it was about a week ago. And by all accounts, knocked it out of the park. And he's got charisma. He speaks very well. He checks off all the boxes that a network would be looking for. And at his young age, he should be able to tap into a different demographic than some of the older guys. So, he is exactly what these networks are looking for. And he's like Brady Quinn in a sense. I look at it like a Brady Quinn, where your career's over a lot earlier than you would have liked it to. Every time I see Brady Quinn, I'm like, bro, you look like you're 20. You should still be playing ball right now, but obviously it didn't work out for him. Anyway, I digress. And he just looks young. Brady Quinn's got a baby face, but that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is, I saw Bob Griffin on socials the other day flexing, with his shirt halfway up, talking about grinding in silence, working out in silence. And then I thought to myself, I really wanted to cuss. I said, I'm not going to cuss at him. One, he can't hear me. Two, he didn't give a shit. But I'm like, isn't that actually the opposite of working in silence? You declaring that you're working out on socials by showing off your physique. Isn't that you pretty much telling everybody and making sure everybody knows you're still working out and that you're in great shape? Is that really working out in silence? Anyway, I digress, because when I looked at that post, I said, he still doesn't get it. You want to show somebody a clip of you working in silence? You want to show somebody a clip of you working in silence, grinding in silence? Show them a clip of you throwing a football accurately. Show them a clip of you being able to spit out some verbiage of a play and go through your progressions quickly and accurately. Show them that, because that's the stuff you struggle with, not being in shape. You've always been a workout warrior. Even going all the way back to all in for week 1. Nobody's ever questioned your ability to tear the weight room to shreds. That's always been your thing. So you showing off your physique in the 6-pack and I'm working in silence, which you're actually not because you're telling us you're working out. Is it the problem? It never has been the problem for you. The problem is you actually playing the quarterback position at a high level. That's been the problem in your career. I laugh when some of these guys, have some of these posts. Like I saw the wide receiver, what's his name, that was drafted. If I could think of the team that drafted him, I'll probably be able to think of his name. Man, I can't think of the team that drafted him, and I can't think of his name. But he was a high first-round draft pick, and he stunk in the league. He was terrible, but he was in tremendous shape. Always has been. Bears drafted him. The Bears drafted him. White. Is it White? Is it White? I feel like it's White. His last name is White. I can't think of his first name. Y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. Somebody help me. Help me. It's White. Bears. First round pick wide receiver. Anyway, y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. She shows off a video of himself, no shirt on, I'm talking about rocked up. Looks like Hercules. And he's like, I'm out here. NFL teams. Kevin White, thank you guys. I knew you would come through for the kid. Kevin White. From West Virginia. Stunk in the league. But he posts this picture of him ripped to shreds. And he's like, I'm out here working. And he was like climbing up a rock, some kind of rock hill. And I'm like, dude, that was never your problem. Your problem was never being in tip-top shape. Endurance, being cut, and physically fit. Your problem was being able to separate and actually catch the football. So if you want to show me a video of you separating from a DB and catching the ball. That's what you could show me if you want me to believe you're out here working in silence. But anyway, I digress. Back to Robert Griffin III. He posted that video, or that post. And I said, bruh, this shit is over, man. It's over. And I think him taking the audition for Fox and CBS is him somewhat acknowledging it. He hasn't quit. If somebody called him right now, he'd go quick, fast, and in a hurry. Nobody's calling. The phone's not ringing. I think he's acknowledging it. Shit is over, bruh. Truth hurts. Truth hurts. Shit is over. Should have been over the last time you got a gig with the Ravens. Because I'm still waiting on my 30 for 30. The rise and fall of Robert Griffin III, of course, is going to be called the rise and fall of RG3, but I don't like calling him RG3. His mama named him Robert Griffin III. I'm going to call him Robert Griffin III. But it's going to be called the rise and fall of RG3. I cannot wait. When he came back for the Ravens, when they gave him an opportunity to play, it's like the Hall of Fame and getting in. Because he got back into the league, they just pushed my 30 for 30 4 more years out into the distance. I was this close from the 30 for 30, period, really being enacted because he was out of the league for like a year or two. And I was this close to having my 30 for 30 be right there in front of me where I could touch it. And then they said, hey, man, why don't you come play for us as a backup? Now I got to wait another 4 years. It's okay. I'll get it eventually. Truth hurts. Shit's over, man. And I was listening to him do some draft commentary. And this is the only thing I worry about him doing NFL games. He's so narcissistic. He still wants to make everything about himself. And so they'd be talking about a player. First of all, Kyle Shanahan can't stand you. Yet he's like, hey, Kyle, if you're going to, this was after the 49ers drafted Trey Lance. Hey, Kyle, if you want me to, help with Trey Lance and his development, all you got to do is give me a phone call. I'd love to come out and help. Negro, please. And he said it with a straight face. I was like, did he just ask Kyle Shanahan for a job? Did he just fix his lips? Man, truth hurts. Shit's over. Anyway, I digress. Note to players recruiting other players on socials. Okay, so this is in all caps. Note to other players recruiting other players on socials. Unless that player is an unrestricted free agent. Let me say that again. Unless a player is an unrestricted free agent, you do know that he doesn't actually get to choose his next landing spot and his next destination. You do understand it. The team is in control of where he goes next. He isn't as a player. He could go to the team and say, hey, I'd like to be traded here. But guess what? If you're demanding to be traded, and I don't like the way that this situation is unfolding, do you think I'm going to go out of my way to make sure you go where you're comfortable? Furthermore, the team could give two shits about where you want to go. I'm trying to go and make this deal happen where I'm going to get the most compensation, the most bang for my buck. So when I see guys like Jalen Ramsey most recently, AJ Brown with the Julio Jones situation, I mean, he put together a presentation to, if anything, you should be pitching the team. Hey, we got to go get this guy. And they can actively be aggressive and go seek that player out. You should be making your pitch to Julio Jones. Julio's not in control of where he ends up going. He doesn't have any say-so in this. Jalen Ramsey's on socials talking to Stephon Gilmore, who's not happy with his contract situation in New England, and he's currently sitting out of mandatory minis. And he's like, hey, bro, what's good? He said Mookie Betts had to leave Boston and go to L.A. to get his ring. What you trying to do? And I'm like, you do know that if the Patriots were going to trade him, and if the Rams aren't interested, there's nothing that Stephon Gilmore can do, right? Like, if the only team interested was Dallas, and that's the only team that was willing to give New England anything, and they were ready to move him, and he went to that. Like, you do understand it. That's how this works, right? I don't understand the purpose behind actively recruiting a player on socials when that guy has zero pull in determining. I shouldn't say zero, because the Falcons wanted to do right by Julio. They also wanted to get the most they could for Julio. And they also wanted the team that was going to take on Julio's salary. If the Titans said, hey, we'll give you everything we gave you in this deal, but we're not taking on Julio's salary, that deal doesn't get done. I don't give a shit what A.J. Brown wants or what he's politicking for. I don't care if Julio wants to go to Tennessee. If the Seahawks were the ones giving up that deal and taking on the contract, he'd be in Seattle right now. So I just find it funny. A bit annoying, but yeah, no skin off my back. But I don't know if they know this or not. But these players have zero control. They're not free agents. Truth hurts. Just in case they didn't know. Truth hurts. They don't have any control over that. Anyway, I digress. Tyrann Mathieu, in response to Le'Veon Bell's quote on socials, never play for Andy Reid again. I'd retire first before I do that. Tyrann Mathieu, in response, replies to that post by Le'Veon Bell that he would never play for Andy Reid again. He'd retire first before he did that. Fellas will blame everybody for their lack of success. Ouch. Truth hurts. Gotta let it burn. Tyrann Mathieu is right in this particular situation. Le'Veon Bell. First thing I thought of when this whole thing started, when I first saw what Le'Veon Bell said about Andy Reid. And look, apparently, according to Le'Veon Bell, Andy Reid said something to him that he didn't like. I don't know if it was derogatory, if it was attacking his character, or if he was just simply saying, bro, you're not Le'Veon Bell from 2018. 2017. You're a different dude now. Like, I personally, I don't know. I can't confirm nor deny any of this. I'm speculating because that's what we do here, right? Especially when you don't have all the facts, you speculate. You draw inferences. I'm assuming Andy Reid told this man to his face, bro, you're the third best back on this roster. You'll get whatever carries you get. Like, he might have told him one thing when he signed him, and then when they got there, he got in the locker room, and he said, look, I loved Kansas City, loved everything about it other than Andy Reid. Loved the players in the locker room, loved the food, loved the fans, everything. I just wouldn't play for Andy Reid again. And Andy might have just been real blunt with him. You're not that dude, man. You view yourself in the same light as the Le'Veon Bell from Pittsburgh. You're not that guy. That guy died in New York with the Jets. You're just a guy now. And he probably didn't want to hear that. That's my guess. Here's the problem with Le'Veon, and let me go back, because I started down this path, and then I backtracked, and I started down the path again, and I backtracked. I'm all over the place. I'm scatterbrained. The first thing I thought of when I read his initial quote was, God bless Mike Tomlin. God dang. Did Mike Tomlin put up with some shit in Pittsburgh for years? Looking back on that stretch where there was Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant all in the same locker room, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell did Mike Tomlin keep that shit together? That was a powder keg. That was a volcano waiting to erupt on a weekly basis, and yet we never knew about it until the aftermath. Okay? We didn't know about just how dysfunctional these guys all individually were, and if you put them all in the same locker room, how explosive and corrosive they could be. And he kept it together, and the Steelers were winning games and making deep runs into the postseason. Yikes. Anyway, back to present day. Le'Veon Bell isn't that guy anymore. He's not that dude. Truth hurts. He's not that dude anymore. You're 29, bruh. And, it's crazy because you look at him and you say, hey, the mileage may not be gone because he had that year off. And I'm saying, between him being a workhorse in Pittsburgh when he was healthy, a couple of nasty injuries in Pittsburgh early in his career, and then the beating and the ass whooping he sustained in New York with the Jets, he ain't that dude, bro. He ain't that guy anymore. He's probably the oldest 29-year-old not named Todd Gurley. And I don't know how old Todd Gurley is, but Todd Gurley's knees are probably 45 going on 50. And Todd Gurley might be 27, 28 years old. Le'Veon Bell, he ain't that old, but he ain't that dude no more either. And he's like, well, yeah, I'll get work when I want to get work. And, I won't make the same mistake I made last time and rush to sign with a team, this, that, and the third. I'm looking around at him like, bro, you'll be lucky if somebody picks up the phone and calls your ass. You out here talking like you that guy. You're not that dude. And I'm thinking that's what Andy Reid told his ass. Like, seriously, you're not that guy no more. That's not who you are. Truth hurts. And I told you a lot of times with these players, and it's not just NFL players, boxers, all of that stuff, they're usually the last to find out that they're not the guy no more. If you got enough yes men around you, you usually the last dude to find out you not this shit. So I got a story. Let me tell you a quick story. This has nothing to do with nothing. It ties into the conversation we're having right now. I was in Atlanta a couple Christmases ago. We used to go to Atlanta for Christmas every year. And we went to a club. And they had old school R&B night, which it really technically wasn't that old school. When I hear old school R&B, I'm thinking, early 90s, even mid 90s, because we're getting old. I'm getting old now. So mid 90s, early 90s, maybe 80s, late 80s. It was like the early 2000s. But I got to realize early 2000s is damn near 2 decades ago. So shit. It is old school when you think about it. But anyway, so on the menu that night was Lloyd, which I'm a massive fan of Lloyd. All right. And he put on a hell of a performance at the club. Man, was it awesome. I could have enjoyed Lloyd performing for an additional 30 minutes. His set could have been a lot longer, and I would have enjoyed every minute. Matter of fact, he could have taken up the set of the next guy that performed. And that was Case. And Case had some hits. Case had some really good music. Problem is, Case still thinks that he's Case from 98. Touch me, tease me Case. In high demand. I think he's got some issues. Personally. I hate to see people struggling. I think he might be struggling with some shit. That's nor here nor there. So he shows up late. He comes out. He forgets the words to his shit. And he still thinks in his mind he's touch me, tease me Case from 98. And the reason he does is because the people around him have on Case shirts. And I'm looking like, bro, you too damn old to be wearing a shirt with another man's name and face on it. But when you got people around you, insulating you, making you think that you're still the shit. You're still the guy. That you're still in your heyday. You're still in the prime. You're still on the charts. It's still 98. You killing them on the soundtrack. To the Nutty Professor. When you think that that's what's going on. When you think Beyonce is still in your video, when you ain't realized Beyonce is a megastar now. She was in your video. Happily ever after. When you realize that's not what's going on, bruh. You an afterthought right now. But he doesn't realize that because he got clowns in his entourage wearing his shirt. Like they 12 years old. Gotta be family members, by the way. If you're not blood related to him and you got on a shirt of a 47-year-old man and you got a shirt and you 39, we got problems. We gotta have a talk. Anyway, I said all of that to say this. It sucks when you're the last one to figure out that you're not that guy anymore. And L. Bell. He was once known as L. Bell. He's just Le'Veon Bell now. He's not that guy anymore. Guys came into the league wanting to have the hezzy and the patience like Le'Veon Bell. He's not that dude anymore. So, truth hurts. And he thinks he's going to get work. He may. A rash of injuries happen. He may get a phone call like last year, but I could honestly see nobody. I mean, this is the thing that I can't understand with some of these guys. When he said what he said, I'm like, bro, do you not want to work anymore? You like being unemployed? Is that what are you attaining? Are you striving to not have work? Because where in your right mind do you think that saying what you said about a very respected, and we had this conversation about 4 months ago about how respected Andy Reid is in league circles. Andy Reid is running shit behind closed doors quietly. Andy Reid has as much pull as any coach in the league. And you gonna come out on socials and say, hey, I never played for Andy Reid? Like, where's the psychological sense in that, player? You think that's a good idea? You need to wash your face and get your mind right. And then afterwards, he said, I'm not backtracking from what I said. The only thing I regret is me saying it in a public forum like social media. Well, duh. Too late now. He said, if I could go back, I wouldn't do it on socials. Well, you've been in the league long enough, bruh. You know better. You know better. You know better. No flex zone. You know not to be flexing like that on the socials. And you still did it anyway. That's what I just don't understand. You too old to be doing stupid rookie shit. I expect a young guy, second year in the league, to do some stupid shit like that. Say some shit on socials that he know, oh man, I effed up. Somebody gets in his ear and say, hey bro, you can't do that. You learn your lesson. You've been in the league too long to be making the same damn mistakes. But you think somebody's going to ring your line? They're going to hit your line up? I'll choose to play when I'm ready. I'm going to take my time. You're going to take your time because your phone ain't ringing. Truth hurts. Anyway, I digress. Got a couple of super chats here. And I'm going to go ahead and knock these out. And then we're going to go to our last segment of the show. Got another one here from Gunnyman. Double up. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up. Gunnyman, greatly appreciate you. My guy, Gunnyman writes, Lou, my guy, my bad. For my hate for Maury runs deep too. He says, I'm a Granby man. Truth hurts. Adam Humphries often injured, severe concussion, not a lot for me. I understand that. I know where you're coming from. Let me go back to your original point. It's all good, bro. All right. Don't nobody like Maury. Okay. No, nobody likes Maury. They're like a red-headed stepchild in Norfolk. Like they right on the cusp. Like honestly, we could do the whole high school circuit and leave them out. They don't even count. Put them in another city. They feel like a beach school. Get them out of here. Okay. Anyway, I digress. I understand where you're coming from with Adam Humphries. Has an injury history. Injury concerns are real. And they should not be taken lightly and they should not be dismissed. But if he's healthy, and I've already said this, if wise man once told me, if is the biggest two-letter word in the dictionary. What if my head was turned backwards and I could see forwards? If I understand, but I've said this, if he's healthy, he's on the roster. Period. It's not up for debate. If he's healthy, he's on the roster. And you're pretty much saying he's not a lot because of his health. Well, I've pretty much said that. If he's not healthy, he is a liability. If he's healthy, he's on the football team. I am assuming health because I don't want to put that out in the atmosphere. You know me. That's not what I do. I want the best for everybody. So I'm not going to put that in the atmosphere. He's going to be healthy. And we're speaking that into existence. So thank you for that super chat. Got another one here from Gunnyman. Thank you for the super chat, Gunnyman. Greatly appreciate you, Gunnyman, for tripling up. My guy, Gunnyman, writes, Tree times. If we do the dumb-ish and keep A.H., Adam Humphries, over the young guns, I guarantee you they will become an Atlanta Falcon. I know where you're going with that because that's where Kyle Smith is, and he was a part of the brain trust that drafted those guys. And really, he was the driving force behind AGG in particular. He was the one running the draft room last year. So he wasn't necessarily in control of the Harmon pick in 19, but he was a part of that decision-making process, whether they went with, the board or not. Bruce Allen was still there, so we can't really say for sure what the hell happened. But yeah, I mean, I could see AGG. I told you all it takes is one GM around the league, one, brass to get together and say, hey, look, I had a really high grade on this kid. I was with him in Washington last year. He injuries, but this guy can play ball. Let's give him a look. See, let's kick the tires on him. He may end up right in Atlanta, like you said. And Kyle Smith is there, so I can connect the dots. I can draw that inference right there with you. I already said, if AGG isn't on the roster, I don't see us getting him back on the practice squad. Now, Harmon, on the other end, I think we could sneak Harmon onto the practice squad. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think the guy that we would have issues getting onto the squad is AGG. If he's released, I don't think he clears waivers and ends up back up in Washington. But we'll see. You never know. And I say that, I've said that before in the past, and hasn't been a problem at all to get any of the stuff back. But this is a different time. The roster is totally different. It's one thing to say, man, if we cut Josh Doxson, I don't know if we're going to get him back. And I'm just throwing out a random name. Or if we cut Ryan Grant, somebody might snatch him up. Don't nobody want Ryan Grant funky ass. Don't nobody want Josh Doxson stinking ass. You can cut those guys all day long 5 times in a row, and they'll still be there for you to put on your practice squad. That's how the roster used to look. When you were cutting dudes, ain't nobody else looking at your stuff. Now this roster is chock full of talented guys, so you cut somebody, some other teams out there eyeballing your stuff, waiting to pounce. So, thank you for the super chat, Gunny Man. Got another one here. This one is from my guy, Colton Wheeler. Thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you. As always, my guy, Colton Wheeler writes, my guy, Lou, sorry for absence, constant OT at work. Hey, get the bread while the bread is there to be buttered and it's hot. Get it. I always tell you that. Don't ever apologize for getting to the money. Go get the money. Go get the money. Go get the money. Go get the money. If it's there to be got, go and get as much of it as you can, man. If they giving out the OT, if they giving out bread, go get as many handfuls of it as you can. So don't apologize. I always tell you that the playbacks are here. Okay, they're not going anywhere. So don't ever apologize for getting to the money. Anyway, my guy Colton Wheeler says, sorry for the absence, constant OT at work, but Heineke is looking ripped and way less frail. I want to see him play a full game or two, kind of like Tua did, just to get some reps and give us a glimpse if he has yet. The only way that takes place is if Ryan Fitzpatrick, one, stinks in camp and in preseason so badly that they have no choice but to go in a different direction, or two, he gets injured during the season, or three, we're out of it. Fitzpatrick has played okay, but, we get to week 14 and we're, probably even less than that. Let's say week 12, week 12, week 13. And we're, 3 and 11 at that point, 3 and 9, and we're out of it. The Cowboys and the Giants are really good. We got no chance in the division. Got no chance of making the postseason. That's when you start playing somebody like Taylor Heineke to find out, okay, well, what do we have? What can this guy provide for us? Is he a legitimate option at quarterback, or do we need to draft someone? And even then, I don't know even if he were to tear it up, go 4-0 down the stretch, and you finish up the season, at 7 and 10 or whatever, even if that's the case, I don't know if that's enough for them to feel comfortable not drafting someone, So he would have to play early in the season with meaningful games in some big spots to prove to them, I can do this. Now, it doesn't get much bigger than the game he started last year in the playoffs, but that was one game. Small sample size. Teams didn't have any film on him. It's totally different. Now, if he were to play week in, week out, and teams can start game planning for him, what he would do in those situations. But that's a really interesting conversation, But when it's all said and done, I think the guy is Ryan Fitzpatrick, personally. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's get to the final topic of the day. Garbage time. So, I want to know who is your early favorite for comeback player of the year. So I was sitting down thinking about topics for the show and what I could do for each segment. And I was struggling with this one because I was like, should this be the Gem Droppin Session or should it be garbage time? And I probably should have made this the Gem Droppin Session. I should have spent a little bit more time on this, but it is what it is. So it's here in garbage time. And I thought to myself, who is the early favorite for comeback player of the year? And I sat down and I said, I don't want to miss anybody. So I literally went through each team in my head. Now, I didn't sit down and put up a list or anything. Literally went through my head quickly, boom, boom, boom. In about 2 minutes, I came up with a list. And that list ended up being with 11 players on it. Of guys that I said were injured. They're impact players in this league. They have a chance to make a huge difference on their respective teams. And they didn't play in enough games last year to feel the impact. So they're going to have a chance to come back, ball out, and have people say, man, they missed him last year. Here's my list of 11. I'm going to give you my guy at the end of this list, but you can start throwing your names out there right now. If you got a name, throw a name out there. But here's the list of guys. I have 11 players on this list. First name, Nick Bosa. Tore his ACL early in the season against the Jets. I want to say that was week 4 of the season. They had back-to-back weeks in New York. And I think he tore it against the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's a big difference maker for them. Part of the reason they were able to make that run all the way to the Super Bowl in his rookie season is because of how good he was. He completed that defensive line. I'd like to think that his presence back on that defensive line is going to do wonders for the 49ers defensively. Von Miller, speaking of edge rushers, look, this guy is still one of the best when healthy. Problem is he seems to always be banged up. But he's at that point of his career where if he wants another contract, this is the last year of his deal in Denver. If he wants another contract, he's 33 years old, I believe. We're getting up there in age. He's got to prove to someone I've still got something left in the tank. So he's got to stay healthy, number one. And number two, we need vintage Von to come back and bag like 14 and a half to prove that I'm not done yet. If this is an 8.5 sack season, he's going to get work, but everyone's going to be looking at him like, hey, man, I don't think you're worth as much as you're looking for right now. You're going to have to come down on that price. So Von Miller is looking for a massive season in Denver. And honestly, if they're going to win games, that defense is going to have to spearhead that attack. They spent so many resources. Like, it was the direct opposite this offseason of their offseason a year ago, where they spent all their resources on offense. This year, they spent all their resources on defense. They get Von Miller healthy. They get Bradley Chubb healthy. With the secondary that's revamped, they could make some noise in that AFC West. Von Miller is a huge part of that, though, in Denver. Saquon Barkley, running back of the New York Giants, tore his ACL, I want to say, in week 2 of the Giants season. I know it was at Chicago early in the season. It was either week 2 or week 3. Feels like week 2, but big loss for them. Their offense really was Saquon Barkley the year prior, and honestly, don't think he got enough touches, to be honest with you, in his second season. And so year 3, we were expecting a lot from Saquon. He gets injured. So year 4 for Saquon is going to have to be massive in New York for the Giants, because they've done a lot to really surround Daniel Jones with talent. And so now the real question is, can Saquon Barkley come back and complete the cipher in New York? They got all the receivers, all the tight ends, everything they could ask for. There still may be some questions on the offensive line, but they've got all the pieces pretty much in place. Now they just need the dominant back to come back and make it all go. Can Saquon Barkley come back and be the dominant force? And he may actually not have to deal with loaded boxes with all the talent they now have at the receiver position. Guys may have to stay out of the box just to keep some of those receivers honest with the speed they've added in Kadarius Toney and John Ross and the big playability of Kenny Golladay. They may actually have to back off a bit, and that may be advantageous for a guy like Saquon Barkley. Christian McCaffrey, CMC, run CMC, to me is the most dynamic back in the league when he's healthy. He's a candidate for KK, 1,000, receiving, rushing. He does it all. The guy is phenomenal. We got a sneak peek of him last year. That game against Kansas City was like a quick, brief reminder. I'm in, I'm out, but just so you know, I'm that dude. I'm that guy. And for me, McCaffrey he's a one-of-a-kind back right now in the league. There are a lot of guys that look like him, can do some things, but there's only one Christian McCaffrey in the league right now. And they missed him. And it's crazy to think that they were in so many ball games without him. Imagine had he played last year. They might have won 9 games in Carolina last year. It's not far-fetched to think that. ODB, shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. Seems like he's on this list every year. Odell Beckham seems like he's recovering from some kind of injury. You know, it's probably a little bit I'm probably overdoing it. He's probably played in, 13, 14 games each of the last, 3 out of the last 4 years or so. But it feels like he's had, season-ending injuries multiple times. But I could be wrong on that. Anyway, he did miss a good portion of the year last year. And, I saw Jarvis Landry saying, hey, this dude looks like he is in the best shape of his life. If anybody would know, it would be Jarvis Landry. We played with him at LSU, and he's played the last couple of years with him in Cleveland. So if he says he's in tremendous shape, I believe him. And bottom line is, Odell Beckham Jr., there were trade rumors, don't know how much validity, and stock to put into that this offseason. But, his name always surfaces for whatever reason. He's a guy that definitely could be a huge difference maker. I talked about the lack of top-end speed and the threat to get vertical in Cleveland's offense at the receiver position. Well, that's because they were missing ODB. You get him back in the mix, and all of a sudden things change. Shame on you if you step toot the old dirty backup. Odell Beckham Jr. on that list. Could be a dominant performance from him in 2021 and could be your comeback player of the year. Dak Prescott. Easy Dak Prescott. We didn't have too many big name quarterbacks go down in the heat last year. He was one of the few. And Dallas missed him dearly. They would have won the division if Dak Prescott doesn't get hurt. There's no doubt in my mind. They were within a game, essentially. The last game of the season, they lose to the Giants. They win that game, and Washington doesn't. They would have been in the playoffs. So they literally were 2 games out of winning the division. Dak Prescott's presence is good for 3 games. With the schedule that they played in 2020, he was good for probably 3 or 4 wins just off the strength of his ability to move the football. There's no way that they lose to the Eagles the first time. That Sunday night game was one of the worst games of the season to watch. And if he plays in that game, they win that game going away. That's just one game. Who knows what happens in the 2 Washington games or, what happens in that last Giants game. But bottom line is they almost beat the Steelers with, who was that quarterback? The SMU quarterback, Garrett Gilbert, right? I think he started that game. They would have won the division with him last year. So the fact that he's coming back, he's going to have a massive impact on that offense. He's definitely in the discussion. Danielle Hunter. And I just saw something hit my phone. Remember we had this conversation about Danielle Hunter? I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. It might have been last week, but it might have been 2 weeks ago. When I said he's not happy with his contract. And Minnesota's going to have to do something. I said they're not going to trade him. Trust me when I tell you they're not going to trade him. But they're going to have to figure out a way to make him happy because he was really not all that happy going into last season. He doesn't play, and he's still not happy. And that didn't go away. It only magnified it. You get hurt, you start looking at your finances and you saying, look, I need security. Just in case some crazy shit happens, I need to be secure. That I'm taken care of, my family's taken care of. And that's why I'm like, they got to do something. They just gave him, I think, an additional $6.5 million of bonus money up front. Adding to his already, lofty, I think it's like $14 million. So in excess of $20 million, which puts him right among the top highest paid, and again, it's just for 1 year. You add the $6 million as a bonus, so it's not on the books. So it doesn't add anything to their cap. And you still are going to pay him like $14 million this year. That puts him right in the range with the Bozas of the world and things of that nature. So that appeases him. That's what he wanted. And then they'll have to figure something out next year. Whatever the case may be. Danielle Hunter didn't play a single game last year. He's one of the best young up-and-coming edge rushers in football. I expect him to jump right back in and pick right up where he left off. If he's healthy, you're looking at anywhere from 15 to 17 sacks more likely than not. Because I think that's the next step for him. It's one of those explosive, dynamic years. I think he's already had a 13. I think he's had a 15. Now you're looking for that 17, 18 sack season. That takes you to a different stratosphere when you get one of those. So Danielle Hunter definitely on this list. Michael Thomas. The running joke on Michael Thomas last year was, hey, does he want to play football? Does he want to play this year? Is he like really dicking the Saints right now and dragging them along, or is this a real injury? Remember, he sustained an ankle injury in week 1 versus Tampa Bay, And I think he ultimately got hurt again. I think this is the part that I might have missed in this whole song and dance with him and the Saints. Remember, he was frustrated, and at one point it was rumored that he wanted to be traded. He didn't refute any of those rumors. At one point it seemed like he was even throwing a little fuel on the fire with some of his cryptic posts on socials. That said, I think he injured himself again, like when he was right on the cusp of coming back. He got injured again in practice, and that, prolonged his return to the lineup. However, it was funny because last year I'm like, this is the longest high ankle sprain in the history of high ankle sprains to heal. Like, it just every week, like, dude, seriously, you're not playing again? He's really trying to get traded. But he ultimately came back. He was a non-factor when he did come back. He got hurt again. He wasn't right last year. The Saints, it's amazing that they made it as far as they did with everything, because Breeze wasn't right, Michael Thomas wasn't right, and yet they somehow made it all the way to the divisional round of the postseason. It's a testament to Sean Payton and the talent on that roster that they got as far as they did with as many injuries to key core players as they had. That said, Michael Thomas was a non-factor last year. Coming off of the year he had in 19, where the guy led the league in receptions, and I want to say, now he broke the NFL record for receptions, I believe, and I think highest percentage of targets caught in a season. I could be wrong on that, but either way, he was ridiculous. He went from, hey, he's a really good receiver, to in the discussion is the best receiver in the league in 2019. And then he was non-existent in 2020. So, he's on the list of guys that could be comeback player of the year. Who's throwing him the football? Jameis Winston? Taysom Hill? Dare I say? Ian Book? I don't know. Derwin James. He's a guy that I think all of us loved coming out of Florida State. He teased us in his rookie season with his dynamic play, and he hasn't really been healthy since. Was drafted in 2018. Was outstanding 2018. Was outstanding in that season, that 2018 season. Gets hurt in 2019. Hurt again in 2020. Really haven't seen him in like 2 full seasons almost. That's what it feels like. We know this guy's a game changer. They've got so much talent out there in Los Angeles with this Chargers football team on the defensive side of the football specifically, but they haven't been able to stay healthy, and he's been one of those guys that hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he's healthy, he's a game changer, and he's definitely a guy that has to be on this list because he could easily come back, have 5 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, and 6 sacks. He's that dynamic of a player. Highly unlikely that he put up those types of numbers, but if you want to win comeback player of the year, you're going to have to put up some lofty numbers. And he's very capable, is Derwin James. Courtland Sutton. Much like Michael Thomas, he elevated his game in 2019 to the heights of which got him into a discussion of, is this dude a top 10 receiver in the league? We're looking around like, hey, Courtland, if you're serious, do it again. No, seriously, do it. Do it. And I was poised. They got all these young boys around him that he was going to be the leader of. Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. And I'm like, oh yeah. Courtland Sutton got all these speedsters around him now. He gets to do the big boy work. They get to do the little small guy work. And you got Noah Fant running seam routes, killing the defense. He's going to eat. Courtland Sutton's going to eat. And by week 2 against the Steelers, he was done for the year. Just like that. Didn't play in week 1, came back in week 2, gone like literally a quarter into the game. Gone. Season. Done. I'm anxious to see what Courtland Sutton looks like in 2020. He's definitely on this list. We'll see what he does this year. And then Joe Mixon. Only played in like 5 or 6 games last year. And he's a fantasy darling. He used to be a fun guy to root for because Cincinnati stunk and they had nothing else except Joe Mixon. Well, shit's changing now. They got talent on offense. He's not the only one. He's got help. I still think their coaching staff stinks. And I still think they've got liabilities on the defensive side. But there's talent on offense. So he doesn't have to do it all. So I don't know necessarily if he is the fantasy darling that he once was. When they didn't have shit, he had to be their offense. However, Joe Mixon can play ball. That's why the Bengals just gave him that extension last offseason. He can play ball. Gotta stay healthy. Can't play ball if you're on the sidelines in street garb. However, Joe Mixon is a guy that we view in this league as a talented football player that is a game changer. And if he plays 15, 16 games in a 17-game set, he's going to put up big numbers. And he's a guy that is also on this list. So, my pick of all of these guys to come back and win Player of the Year, I got two in particular that I'm staring at. Dak Prescott in Dallas. One, because it's Dallas and it's Dak Prescott in his quarterback position. And what position garners more attention in the quarterback position? And what team garners more attention than the Dallas Cowboys? So you put the two together. If he plays well, hard for him not to win. However, I'm staring at Christian McCaffrey and I'm saying, They got Sam Darnold. They were in about 7 or 8 one-score ball games that they ended up on the short side of. They added more pieces on that football. I told you that Matt Rule is going to turn shit around and he's going to do it rather quickly in Carolina. I told you that when he got the job. They were highly competitive last year. Almost went to Kansas City and won. Had a bunch of teams like Green Bay, in Green Bay, on the ropes. Let them off the hook. They had opportunities to win some games last year. They were in a bunch of ball games. They're dangerous. And that was with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Think about what they could do if Sam Darnold is what a lot of you thought, because I wasn't a Sam Darnold fan coming out of SC. But I know he's talented, and I've acknowledged that he's talented. Wasn't a fan of his coming out of SC. But just imagine what happens if he's actually good. And I told you, it's less about Sam Darnold, more about Joe Brady. I think that guy is a star. I think Joe Brady, as an offensive play caller, is a star and a future NFL head coach in the making. So it's less about Sam Darnold, more about Joe Brady. Joe Brady's going to tear some shit up. You give him Christian McCaffrey? I already said he didn't know how to act when he had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at LSU. He didn't know how to act. You know, that's what got Clyde Edwards-Helaire drafted in the first round, because Joe Brady had this man playing like his mind was going bad. Splitting him out, backfield, catching it, running it, all kinds of stuff. What do you think he's going to... We got one game of McCaffrey, essentially, that I remember. And maybe he was playing early in the season against the Raiders and some of those early games, you know, in the season that they fell, short on. But I remember the Chiefs game, and I'm saying, man, Christian McCaffrey is out here eating. He was out there eating. That was just one game. I said, man, Joe's going to have some fun with this boy. If he ever gets healthy, Joe Brady is going to have a field day with Christian McCaffrey. I think ultimately Dak Prescott wins, but my money's on Christian McCaffrey coming back and just tearing the league to shreds. He's healthy. If he's healthy, I got Christian McCaffrey. But I wouldn't be shocked. Dak Prescott's probably going to win because he's a quarterback. You know, a big name quarterback goes down and comes back. All eyes are on that guy, because this league is driven by the quarterback position. Like I said, if not for Alex Smith, Ben Roethlisberger wins Comeback Player of the Year last year in a landslide, going away. But the Alex Smith story was undeniable. You couldn't overcome that. No matter how hard Ben could have went all the way to the Super Bowl, and they already would have had casted their votes and all that stuff. But Ben could have won the Super Bowl. He still wasn't going to win Comeback Player of the Year last year over Alex Smith. Dak Prescott's going to be in the mix. But I'm going with Christian McCaffrey, man. I think he's going to tear it up this year. So, anyhow, That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, on the 170th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. Really do appreciate you. Shout out to the mods out there. Really do appreciate all the work that you do for the Louie T Network and this podcast and this channel and this brand. So thank you so much for your participation. If you're out there and you haven't already done so, please, please, please do me a huge solid. And I know my mods have probably been out there advocating on my behalf, but I'm going to do it anyway. Please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And hit the like button. Over 100 of you out there. Only 47 likes. Are you kidding me? Come on. We should be at 50. We should be hitting 60 and approaching 70. That's the magic number. 75 is the magic number that I try to get to before every podcast episode is over. Get to 75. You're close to 100. Let's hit that button if you haven't already hit it. So with that being said, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you to get back to your evening. You know, if you will. We started this thing at 3. It's now 4:30, so it's getting close to the evening. You know, it's Monday. You probably got a lot of stuff to do, so I won't hold you up any longer. I really do appreciate you guys joining me on the 170th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Remember, get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. New upload of the Card Collector series coming at you at 5. We're live on Wednesday night. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday's show, but until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys, take care. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.